Hello friends, enemies, and netizens. You're watching Taper TV. Today we have a serious topic. Is Spirited Away a metaphor for child sex trafficking? Let's find out. So this theory is a little bit over 20 years old. Back in 2001, there is a Japanese film critic who lives in San Francisco named Tomohiro Machiyama who popularized this theory. But the issue is that he uses a willful mistranslation of an interview quote from Miyazaki. Here is a quote from the original article, supposedly, that Machiyama wrote. Is what Miyazaki really wants to show a 10-year-old girl? Yes. In an interview for the Japanese edition of Premiere magazine, he confesses that Spirited Away is about the sex industry. He said traditionally Japanese morality about sex has been more open and free before Western culture pushed the importance of virtue upon us. Though I don't mean I want to go back to advocate the old Japanese freedom of sex in my new film. I just think that the sex industry is the best thing to represent the reality of today's Japanese society. Now, the sex industry is everywhere in Japan, and the number of young girls who look like whores is increasing. Suspicious. He makes the connection that the spa workers in Spirited Away are like the workers at a soap plant. You know? Maybe not. If you read the quote another way from a fan translation, it seems that it says more about society than about sex work. But someone had the brilliant idea to check the original article and decided to translate it. Once again, we owe everything to fan translators. Following some comments about Mononoke Hime, the article states, unlike the idyllic village in the Muromachi era or the Grand Forest, the mysterious town in Spirited Away even looks somewhat shady. Then the article continues with Miyazaki-san's quote. When I was a child, there was literally a red light district, even in Then the article continues with Miyazaki-san's quote. When I was a child, there was literally a red light district, even in Shinjuku. It is not intentional, but the film depicts the kind of skid road, which is a bit old and we've forgotten about. Traditionally, Japanese were open to sex before the Westerners who were appalled by our loose morals and pushed their morality. The fan translator adds, although the article does not state that the interviewer's question, it seems that he asks about the difference between the idyllic village and the grand forest in Mononoke and the town in Sen, which contains a somewhat shady part. And Miyazaki-san's comment seems to be the answer to the question, explaining that the world in Sen includes, Spirited Away, includes such a shady part because that was what the old Japan used to have. It wasn't intentional. It was because this is from his memory of, an old town. There's seedy parts, and the seedy parts exist, and he's going to put them in the spirit world. The world in Spirited Away, the spirit world is just supposed to be more like old Japan. Anyways, all right. Another theory I read is that when Sen is cleaning the stink spirit who turns into a river spirit, she's jacking him off. And I'd like to debunk that. Interviewer. What about the scene with the Putrid River god? Does it have a base in Japanese mythology? Miyazaki. No, it doesn't come from mythology, but from my own experience. There is a river close to where I live in the countryside. When they cleaned the river, we got to see what was at the bottom of it, which was truly putrid. In the river, there was a bicycle with its wheels sticking out above the surface of the water. So they thought it would be easy to pull out. But it was terribly difficult because it had become so heavy from all the dirt it had collected over the years. Now they've managed to clean up the river, the fish are slowly returning to it, so all is not lost. But the smell of what they dug up was really awful. Everyone had just been throwing stuff into that river over the years, so it was an absolute mess.
The river spirit is a personification of the river, so he would be damaged by pollution. It's not a sexual commentary, it's an environmental one. I found this in another YouTuber, a Japanese comedian, 𝔞𝔯𝔱𝔦𝔫𝔨𝔰. Hello if you watch this. And all of his videos are about the sex industry and sex in Japan in English, so it's targeted towards foreigners. That's a little suspicious to me. Also, if you are looking for sex, okay, you will find it anywhere and everywhere, but that doesn't mean it's there. Anyways, another part of this conspiracy theory is that Sen loses her name and gets a new one, kind of like a stage name, or how sex workers don't use their real name. This is also bunk. The power of names is a universal trope from Celtic fairy lore to Judaism and Japanese folklore. Knowing a creature's true name gives you power over them. The Chihiro to Sen name change, it shows that her name is reduced. It could also be a metaphor for losing your sense of self at work. Grinding for the boss all day and being too tired to do anything for yourself. Even though I think the second part that I just said is a bit of a stretch, it's definitely from the first part of the power of names in folklore all around the world. So why is this theory so popular? Let's be honest. It's a hot, spicy take. It's a salacious title that gets clicks and views. It sells books and magazines. You know? We love to see it.
Before anyone comes for me and is like, whoa, Lissa, you're saying everyone's talking about this for clicks, yada, yada, yada. Aren't you just doing the same thing? And absolutely I am. I'm a tiny YouTuber with 14 subscribers. I need all the clicks I can get.
Also, Miyazaki has stated in other interviews, but he is a pessimist. But when he makes movies for children, which Spirited Away is, he makes them positive with chances of redemption. He also made this movie with a French child in mind.
What made me decide to make this film was the realization that there are no films for that age group of 10-year-old girls. It was through observing the daughter of a friend that I realized there were no films out there for her. No films that spoke directly to her. Certainly girls like her see films that contain characters their age, but they can't identify with them because they are imaginary characters that don't resemble them at all. With Spirited Away, I wanted to say to them, don't worry, it will be all right in the end. There will be something for you, not just in cinema, but also in everyday life. For that it was necessary to have a heroine who is an ordinary girl, not someone who could fly or do something impossible, just a girl you can encounter anywhere in Japan. Every time I wrote or drew something concerning the character of Chihiro and her actions, I asked myself the question whether my friend's daughter or her friends would be capable of doing it. That was my criteria for every scene for which I gave Chihiro another task or challenge. Because it's through surmounting these challenges that this little Japanese girl becomes a capable person. It took me 3 years to make this film, so now my friend's daughter is 13 years old rather than 10. But she loved the film. That made me very happy.
Why would he make this movie about sex trafficking? What is more depressing and pessimistic than child sex trafficking? Thinking that it's about child sex trafficking is a bit of mental gymnastics that I can't understand. And also, since this theory is based on a willfully mistranslated quote used to prove a point, it opens up a larger question about translation and the consumption of foreign art. I think a layer of confusion is to be expected, and that confusion should push you to do your own research into the histories, language, and iconography of different cultures. It might never be perfect, but you can try and you can get close. And I think anime as a whole has gone under a huge change, and one of the biggest casualties has been fan translations. People who translated all of this stuff for free now cannot get jobs translating for Crunchyroll and Netflix and stuff like that. And I think one of the biggest losses for foreign consumers has been there is no translation note at the top of the screen anymore. People who have been translating for free for years now have a difficult time being hired by places like Crunchyroll and Netflix. Instead, you have people with master's degrees who wish to be translating 𝔏𝔦𝔫𝔨𝔰 and the Tales of Genji are translating your anime. Maybe that's not so good. Maybe people with contempt for this art form should not be translating it. TLDR. Is Spirited Away about sex trafficking? Probably not, but in the words of Ursula Le Guin, the reader is king. It is up to you. Your own personal interpretation is yours. But your own personal interpretation is yours, and you should have your own opinion on this topic. I obviously do. But you shouldn't let a willful mistranslation by someone who's trying to sell you something or get your clicks and views be your evidence of your interpretation. Watch the movie again, read more interviews with 7 different versions of translations, and make up your own mind. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. You're watching Taper TV once again. Please find me on Instagram at @Taper_TV. Thank you to my 14 subscribers. Thank you to everyone who watched this video and will continue watching my videos. Share this video with a non-believer.